Greetings, greetings, family. Yes, Sister Shanice in the house. I want to thank you all for joining us today for another fantastic, bombastic panel discussion. As you can see, we already have Dr. Aboo in the house. He's going to introduce himself in a short while. We've got Prophet getting ready behind the scenes. We've got Leo Mohammed, who's going to be joining us in a little while. And we've also got Marshall, who's back screen. So let me just add them to the stream right now. Greetings, family. Okay, let's go around the panel and ask everyone to introduce themselves to you. So firstly, Dr. Aboo.
Vodum family. Rise up,
Vodum.
Sister Shanice. Prophet Kwaiku. Brother Marshall.
Yes, Dr. Aboo. Yes,
right.
my brother.
Rise up.
And well, today, the people I'm out there and to the family, I'm Aboo Ratata, a member of the Galaxy family, a Freeway family, a member of the African family, here in England, fighting for our reparation and our liberation, and I'm glad to be here on this platform, sharing with Sister Shanice.
Rise up, Dr. Aboo. Privilege and honor to have you on board and part of the panel again today. Rise yourself up. Prophet Kwaiku, please introduce yourself to the family.
Well, Akwaba in the name of the creating force of the University of Omnipotent being that which is greater than ourselves, who has many names: Olodumare, Nkulukulu, Kwame Blafwashe, Mungo, Onyeme, Amenra, Ja, Ashe.
Ashe.
Affectionately known over here within the Pan-Africanist movement as Prophet Kwaiku, a member of Nubia African Community Foundation School, co-chair of the African Emancipation Day Reparation March Committee from 2015 to 2019, a member of the Gvt project inside Ghana, a repatriation project that is asking Africans to come home and set up business, set up their home, set up a future, or even their retirement in Africa, amongst African people, by African people, with African people, for African people. And also a pilot on GalaxyAfiwe.com, one of the Galaxy family, and an activist here working on behalf of our community for many, many years, trying to Africate our people in the overstanding of who we are as African people globally.
Hotep. Rise up, Prophet. And we have CD Marshall. Gorey, please introduce yourself, family.
Well, good evening, Sister Shanice. Good evening, brothers. My name is Marshall Gorey. I am the current chairman of ZANU-PF UK and EU, the ruling party in Zimbabwe. I'm also a Zimbabwean diaspora community leader and a Pan-African who has worked hard to rebuild cohesion within the African diaspora community across. So I'm here to represent not only Zimbabwe, but to represent an African voice as a Pan-African. Thank you.
Thank you too. Rise up yourself, my brother. And thank you so much for joining us on the panel today for today's very important discussion. Family, as you all know, my name is Sister Shanice, and I want to thank everybody who's already logged on to the channel. Rise yourself up. I can see in the chat we have Lance Kelly who's saying peace. We have M Good who's saying greetings, beautiful people. Missy in the house, fantastic. Jay is rising up the family. Let us know where you're logging in from. Use the chat so that you can communicate with us. Rise up fondue. So yes, Sister Shanice here, run Starlight Global, which does tours to Africa. We've started with Zimbabwe. We've taken 97 people so far to visit Zimbabwe over the last 3 years. And we were planning to do a trip to Zimbabwe and Tanzania this year, but unfortunately COVID had its plans and knocked that out of the window. But hopefully next year we'll be able to resume our trips to Africa. And yes, I'm also a presenter on the Big G Galaxy Alfiwi. I'll put the link in a little while in the chat so that you can tune in. And actually underneath the description for this show, I'll also mention when my shows are, when Dr. Aboo and when Prophet Kwaiku shows are on the Big G, so that you can tune in and have a conversation with us live on air. Okay, we discuss a whole range of issues that's pertinent to us as a people. As you know, I'm a vlogger. I do videos on this YouTube channel. And although I live here in the UK, my heart is in Africa. Because as an African born in the UK, there's no difference from myself as Africans born on the continent, born in Jamaica, Africans born in America, Africans born in Canada. Yeah, from our perspective, we are first and foremost Africans. Everything else comes next. Our nationality comes next. Our ethnic origin comes next. Our name, our religion, you know, our tribe, all comes secondary. First and foremost, we are Africans. When anyone outside of our race looks at us, whether we're born in Cameroon or South Africa or Zimbabwe or Nigeria, what they see is an African. So, you know, we recognize that, you know, first and foremost. So rising up all of the Africans in the house who recognize themselves as such, who love their melanated skin, we rise you all up, because, you know, we are one people, and, you know, we've got to look to each other, have we not, for the solution to our problems. We can't expect those who have, you know, who had formerly enslaved us to be coming now with the solution for our problems. So this panel we use to debate and discuss issues that are pertinent to us. So as we're being joined, let me just run around the panel just for a few opening remarks before I introduce the topic for today. Dr. Aboo, please give us a few opening remarks, some voodoo remarks.
Well, you know, once again, you know, rise up to the prophet, you know, and Brother Marshall, you know, and to you, Sister Shanice, you know, and to the family out there. You understand? We are in a time now where we try everything else. You know, it's full time that we try us. You understand? You know, we've been taking other people's prescription. You know, see, and our one is right there, but just because it is not popular. It's not popular, especially in the West, to even say that you're an African.
True talk.
Yeah, you can say that you're Rainbow Coalition, you can say that you're gay, you can say all kind of things, but as soon as you come and to say that you're an African, it's an offense. You understand? And we draw our strength from our people in Africa, just like how they draw their strength from us. And when we see things happen, that really galvanizes us to say, yeah, there's a chance. You know, we're not jumping out of frying pan in a fire. And that's why I did love Zimbabwe. You understand?
Yeah.
You know, Zimbabwe and Gambia. When Yaya come out and said he must step out of the Commonwealth, we said, give thanks. At least we'll go somewhere.
Right.
You understand? And when the other one go back and say, I go back in there, I'm telling you, blood, it's like the slave catch us and give us back.
For real.
You know, just like what's happening in Zimbabwe is like we have been caught again by the slave catchers. And it just pan up. You know, it's like somebody threw a dirty rag in your face. If the government of Zimbabwe know that what we go through here, defending the land of their people, they would have think twice. Because if they don't rise up, the ancestor gonna bring some very dangerous destruction to Zimbabwe. I'm telling you. You have to realize that we are children of the kidnapped people here. You understand? I born in this country and I never feel like an Englishman yet. Never in my life. You understand? And I'm glad when you raised the point that a dog that born in an oven is not a biscuit. You understand? A lot of us, we come here and we want to talk about so we British and we this and we that. But they have no feelings towards us in them thing there. What them looking at is just building up, use us as numbers and case study. I know them can write and report and do all them like a funny documentary. So as I give thanks for the panel. Voodoo.
Voodoo, rise up, Dr. Aboo. Thank you for those opening remarks. Over to you, Prophet Kwaiku.
Yeah, Otepan, Itepe Neke Jea, Senebe, divine peace, long life and stability and good health. To you, Shanice, you, Dr. Aboo, and you, Elder, for being a part of this program, and to all those who's tuned in and listening. We give honor and thanks to the ancestors and the creating force of the universe. That's the first thing we must do in anything that we are doing. We must always put our ancestors ahead of us. And there's a quote, just to add to what Dr. Aboo said. I'm going to recite the quote, and then I'll tell you who wrote the quote. It said, we are the only people in this entire planet who have been taught to sing and praise and dance our demeanement. You know, I'm a bitch, I'm a hoe, I'm a gangster, I'm a thug, I'm a dog. If you can train a people to demean and degrade themselves, you can oppress them forever. You can you can even program them to kill themselves, and they won't even overstand it. And that's a quote from the great late, our ancestor, Francis Cress Wilson.
Rise up her spirit.
Ashe. And just to echo what Dr. Aboo said, just welcome our brother Kwaba and brother Leo. I just see him on the pictures after the hearing.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah. Yes.
So just to echo what Dr. Aboo said, I think a lot of the leaders, and we won't say the people of Africa, because the grassroots people in Africa is more connected with the Africans in the diaspora than the actual leadership in Africa. And so the leadership in Africa, whether we want to accept them as our leaders or not, those are the people, whether it's the enemy put them there or them get to be the presidents by default, whatever the thing is, those are the ones that's postulated on the world scene as the leaders of the various countries in Mama Africa. And those leaders don't seem to have connection with the grassroots unless they are paying people to overthrow other people, to abuse the general population, or to silence them. We, the Africans in the diaspora, the Africans who are the descendants of the kidnapped children, we are the ones who sang songs about the liberation of Africa, who sang songs about, oh, we must return back to Africa and how Africa must free. Africa was endemic in our music, especially those of us from the Caribbean island of Africa. And even in the calypso music from Trinidad and Barbados, you hear these songs where they're talking about Africa and the liberation of Africa. So Africa, even though they kidnap us, Africa has always been in our spirit, in the energies that we do, and in our DNA. And so it's incumbent on us to link with those who are in the motherland and know our position where Africa is concerned. We want to come home. And as an African who's involved in a project on the continent of Africa, in Ghana, and one of the reasons why we chose Ghana was because at the time, Ghana didn't have an extraditing treaty with no European nation. You understand me? And they had a, I think what they call the right of abode. That you can come and settle in Africa. You couldn't vote or anything, but you had a right of abode to be there. And so why we chose Ghana for the first Gvt project. And so it is necessary for us as African people to always regurgitate Africa to our children then. Unfortunately, what tends to happen on the motherland, they regurgitate the enemy's language, the enemy's doctrine and theology to our people. Hence why we're still in the condition that we're in. And hence why the reasons for this conversation tonight. White people getting back land that they did not pay for.
We're going to go on to that, my brother, in a short while. Rise up, Hotep, Hotep. And Marshall, a few opening remarks from you. Then we're going to welcome our brother Leo Mohammed, and then we're going to go over to the topic for discussion. Brother Marshall.
Thank you, Sister Shanice. It's a pleasure to be on this show with a lot of respectful brothers, Brother Kwame and Dr. Aboo, who I actually met in Zimbabwe on your last trip. We were together. So it was great to see him on the mainland together, you know, so proud moment actually for us to catch up in Zimbabwe. And I have a lot of respect also for the work that has been done by Prophet Kwame. I've been following his work
Prophet
for a very long time.
Kwaiku.
Prophet Kwaiku, sorry. Yeah, Kwaiku, sorry, for a very long time. You know, I appreciate you, my brother, for the good work that you're doing. And let me take this opportunity also to express that the gratitude we have received from our African and Caribbean brothers has been grateful throughout the way. The support has been very overwhelming and grateful. We are not alone in this. We are together in brotherhood. And we appreciate that conversations like this will help us together to build one brotherhood spirit where we actually cross-pollinate ideas and share ideas from each other. We are one people in our embodiment, and I'm so grateful that today I have an opportunity to discuss critical issues about Zimbabwe, about Africa, with people who care, with Africans who care about Mother Africa itself. So I look forward to this discussion with great anticipation. And I do believe that as I leave this discussion, I will have learned a lot, and I will have a lot to share with people generally as Zimbabweans and also at party level. So I take this experience and value it so much. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. We certainly value you taking the time to be here as well, my brother. One love. Brother Leo Mohammed, please, introduce yourself to the family, my brother.
Greetings, my dear family. Once again, so much, Sister, Brother Aboo, and Brother Kwaiku, and our brother Marshall. It's a great honor and privilege to be on the call with all of you. And I'm also to the conversation because I think it's a very, very important one, and we need to drill down into what we see going on in the Global Black Family Day, because it's critically important that all of us get on the same page if we are to affect a change that's going to be to our benefit as opposed to what is currently the status quo to our detriment. So I'm very honored and privileged to be here, and I look forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you too, my brother Leo. It's the gremlins have got your phone line again. You was chipping in and out. And I'm getting some feedback now as well. So I'm just looking for my charger at the same time. But let me introduce today's topic. Very important topic indeed. And I'm delighted that we've got our brother in the house who's going to be taking back our views and opinions to the party line. So I wonder if my brothers could put their phone on mute. Sorry, put their camera on mute. Just so that we're not getting that feedback. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so family, today we're going to be discussing. Oh no, don't put your camera on mute, brother Leo. Just your audio. Okay. All right. Well, so today we're going to be discussing Zimbabwe.
I'm just going to look at.
Sorry. Okay, let's.
No, sorry. I was just going to look at see if I could see these gremlins. my sister.
Okay, let me leave you to do that, and then we'll bring you back in, my brother. Okay, so today we're going to be discussing, as I said, Zimbabwe. It's a really important land question, and the reason why, one of the reasons why the Zimbabwe issue is so important is because, you know, we all know what a precedent is. You know, we all know what it means when one country, you know, seems to do something. It then has a impact on, you know, other countries that might be following in its footsteps. So we want to talk about this. As we know, back on the 29th of July, there was this proposal. Well, it was a global compensation agreement that was signed by the Zimbabwean government and a group that refer to themselves as these former white farmers or farm owners in Zimbabwe. And they agreed a whopping 3.5 billion in compensation for what they're claiming to be infrastructural works that they left behind, infrastructure that they left behind on the land when the land was seized from them, and when, you know, they were actually forced to leave the land. And then we have a situation where the Zimbabwean Minister of Lands and the Minister of Finance have both signed a further agreement, a joint statement clarifying their intentions. And these intentions include paying compensation to farmer, it says farmer landowners whose land, I have to say whose land, but it says in here whose land was compulsorily acquired for resettlement. Also, it intends to what it's claiming where there was illegal occupation of the farmland, which led to the government issuing letters to the farmers, the new farmers. Now, these, my interpretation is that these would be the Africans who subsequently occupied the land. The government then offered them letters. Now they're looking to relocate those farmers. And there's also further talk about the opportunity for those former white landowners, it says, to regularize their tenure and even through the government department secure a 99-year lease on the land. There's entitlement for compensation, again, for the former landowners, for both land and land improvements. As I mentioned, regaining possession of the land in the hands of the black farmers, offering it back, you know, to the white farmers for resettlement. Now, history is the greatest teacher. We all know that. And what we do know is that throughout the 19th century, you know, during the 1800s, there was an almost 50-year genocide that was taking place in the region of Southern Africa by these white invaders. And it was part of their effort to actually clear the land of Africans for white settlement. And they were almost successful and in succeeding at doing that, you know. So they stole the land from the inhabitants, and not before, you know, massacring probably about 1 million, maybe more Africans who were slaughtered. And a lot of that just seems to be swept under the carpet. But that region of Africa, we have to remember, is waist deep in blood that was shed, mercilessly shed by these European invaders. Okay, now they subsequently illegally occupied the land, and they commenced their farming and their mining, etc. on the land. They renamed the region Rhodesia, and they then handed down the land, the best land, mind you, they took as well, to their family members and friends. But after about 70 years of the brutality, the apartheid, the lynchings, the hangings, etc., and all of the abuse, there came a generation of Africans who decided that enough was enough. And Robert Mugabe, alongside the other freedom fighters, they fought a vicious 14-year war. And there were huge casualties, but they fought that war to win back the land from those descendants of those invaders or those squatters. And they they won. They were successful. And those freedom fighters, as I said, they suffered heavy casualties to get the land back from those invaders. And they proudly afterwards renamed the country Zimbabwe and subsequently embarked on a land redistribution policy. The land redistribution policy was aimed at returning the land back to its original owners, the people. And in so doing, taking the land back from the hands of the minority whites, putting an end to their ill-gotten gains. And of course, it drove a wedge between their plans to wipe out all of the Africans and claim the region for themselves, and making it an exclusive white settlement ownership. And, you know, their friends back home who subsequently, you know, started penalizing that region in Africa to the point where sanctions, have been really difficult for the country. Okay, we seem to have lost Brother Kwaiku. We've got back Brother Leo now, and once Brother Kwaiku comes back, we'll bring him back. So that was a bit of a background to the situation. We're going to go straight over to our guest, our brother CD Marshall Gorey, who, you know, as we said, is a party representative, to find out, you know, what's going on in Zimbabwe with these new agreements. Let's have a discussion about it, my brother.
Thank you, Sister Shanice, for giving us a very good summary of events that has been taking in Zimbabwe in the last 2 decades, I would precisely say. I want to start by just giving a clear background of what has been happening in Zimbabwe and what has brought us to this juncture here. Mm-hmm. But I think it's important for me, before I give a very good brief genealogy of our case as a country, for me to also demystify some of the misinformation and the disinformation that has surrounded the Global Compensation Agreement. I want to make it very clear that under the Global Compensation Agreement, no Black person who acquired land during land reform is going to be made landless. I want to make it very clear that the Global Compensation Agreement seeks to ensure, to consolidate the gains of the revolution, and no one is going to lose land. I want to make it very clear that this government program is meant to rationalize land reform and not to reverse land reform. Mm-hmm. So let me make it very clear that there is no reversal of land reform, but what we have now is a rationalization of land tenure. What we have now is we're going through a period of reconstruction and rebuilding and aligning things that perhaps maybe might have been done in hindsight in a haphazard manner, and bringing them into constitutionality. What I need to say, Sister Shanice, maybe briefly, if you can allow me to digress a little bit, to just give a very good brief historical background of the journey that Zimbabwe have traveled post colonialism to neo-colonialism to where we are now. I want to make it very clear that as a country, we became liberated in 1980 after a protracted liberation struggle, war. A lot of Zimbabweans gave their lives and died during that war. And prior to the liberation war that gave us independence in 1980, there had been another earlier first Chimurenga uprising led by the likes of Mbuyane Anda and Sekuru Kagui, which was again a protracted struggle for independence. What independence were they fighting for? They were fighting for independence to get the land. So I want to make it very clear that when we got independent in 1980, we got independent on conditions of the Lancaster Agreement, which I will not dwell too much on, but it has a bearing to the position where we are today. The Lancaster Agreement set the context of matters that we are seeing today. And I want to also say, from a Zimbabwean perspective and a government perspective, there were key priorities that we had to face and to fight in the last 20 years. The first initial struggle we had was to fight for liberation, for independence, which we did very well and attained in 1980. The second war was to educate our people, and you keep them with good education so that they can be prepared for the third warfare, which was now transforming the land and the economy into the hands of our people. And I want to also stand and say, I want to appreciate the efforts that were put by our government since 1980 up to 1990 to ensure that the majority Black Zimbabweans are well educated in preparation for the handover and takeover of the economy, which in this case is the land. So I want to pay greater tribute to our leaders from 1980 that they did well in ushering us in the First Republic, which delivered a scope and a program of education for all, which ensured that those that had missed education as a result of the Liberation War got an opportunity to go back to school and finish their studies. So that process was articulated very well and it went very well. So after 1980, we then moved to 1990, where now we revisited the Lancaster Agreement, where now it was time for us to reclaim our land, where now it was time for us to reclaim the land, which is the economy. And I want to also pay credit to the manner in which our government handled things to ensure that the land reform, which kickstarted in 2002, was a success. But prior to the land reform, we followed all the channels that were required under international law to obtain our land. We followed the prescriptions from the Lancaster Agreement, which prescribed the land acquisition bill, which was willing buyer, willing seller. All these methods were explored by our government with vain success or very little success. And as Zimbabweans, we came to an agreement in year 2000 that we could not wait anymore. We had been failed by international law. We had been failed by Lancaster. We had also been failed by the negotiations which our government had tried to actually purchase under the Lancaster with the help of the British government to purchase the land. And at that juncture, we had problems in 1987, if you recall, under the Blair government that reneged on the agreement we had that the British government and their associates were supposed to pay for the land, and then the government of Zimbabwe would come up with a package to pay for the compensation. So I want to make it very clear that land expropriation without compensation was lost at Lancaster. It did not start now. It's revisited in the Constitution because at Lancaster, this is where this battle was lost. Why was this battle lost? It's important for people to understand. This battle was lost because when we went to Lancaster, we were also compiled with our good friends that had supported us, the likes of Kenneth Kaunda, the likes of Julius Nyerere, the likes of Samora Machel. They also pushed us to take that deal when it was put on the table. Historically, the Liberation War heroes that were leading the negotiations were not happy with the deal. But when they reverted back to the people that were supporting the struggle, the Nyereres and the Kaundas, they said, guys, you have to take this. It's a good concession. So our government and our Liberation War heroes, the likes of Robert Mugabe, President Emerson Mnangagwa, and those that embarked in the Lancaster Agreement, had no option but to accept it. So I want to make it very clear that it was at Lancaster that the land appropriation without compensation was lost. But then I want to fast forward again that prior to the land reform, our government called for a referendum where they put it to Zimbabweans to vote on the matter of allowing again land expropriation without compensation. And I want to make it very clear that it was the first time that our government lost what looked like an election. Our government again lost that vote, and people voted against that bill, which was going to enable us to take land without compensation. Again, I'm giving a clear historical understanding so that we have a clear understanding of why we have got here. So after that referendum, our government, against the wishes of the international community, rightfully so, stood as the people of Zimbabwe went ahead to reclaim their land. The people of Zimbabwe successfully took their land from 2000 during a protracted land reform program. Yes, there were situations when things were not done properly. And I admit also, because I was in Zimbabwe at that time, to witness the reclaim of land. It was very chaotic at times, but I think government did work hard to align some of the fragilities that took place at that particular time. But I want to also emphasize that after that, we were faced with, again, another constitutional matter of building the Constitution of Zimbabwe in 2013. And again, that presented us with an opportunity to ensure that we embed in a constitution a pro-agrarian clause which did not enable us to expropriate land without compensation. But unfortunately, at that particular time, again, there were forces, I would have to say, in the opposition that colluded with the former white farmers and pressure from the Western world. And again, the people of Zimbabwe in 2013 voted 90% in majority for a constitution that paid reference to the fact that the former white farmers will need to be compensated for improvements. I want to make it very clear. The constitution stipulates that they need to be paid for improvements and developments that they did on the land. Yes, we can argue whether that is appropriate or not. That's another argument for another day, because we can go further with that. But I want to make it clear that, again, it's a constitutional mandate which gave provisions for government to compensate the former white farmers. That was agreed in 2013 when Zimbabweans collectively across the political divide ushered a new constitution under Robert Mugabe, which compelled the government to pay compensation. So
thank you.
Where are we now? Yeah, where are we now today? I want to very quickly summarize, Sister Shanice, without taking off time. Where are we now today? We're at this juncture now where this government under the Second Republic made a commitment to ensure that they uphold and concur with the rule of law. So our government, what they are simply doing now is to find fine ground and common understanding so that they can institute this constitutional mandate which enshrines government to pay former white farmers for the compensation of their land. And I want to also quickly cover the contentious bit in this agreement. The contentious bit in the global compensation agreement is the BIPA, the bilateral agreements land that there was after independence. The Zimbabwe government supported farmers that were farming then to go into agreements with corporate companies, to go into agreements with some Western governments to support farming programs in Zimbabwe under business partnerships. These business partnerships were underwritten by the government of Zimbabwe. And unfortunately, during the land reform process, some of this land and some of these farms, which were commercial and covered under the bilateral agreements, were also invaded. So what government is doing now is to revisit that matter, because there was breach of international law, that a government had signed an agreement to uphold the rule of law, and now we reneged on that. So government is now correcting that. How are they correcting this? They are saying now what we need to do now is to do a proper assessment of these farms. And let me make it very clear, Sister Shanice, these farms are not a lot. I think in number, they number about less than 40. Where the bilateral agreements were ring-fenced again. So the government is saying that we are going to revisit this, but how we are going to do it is that we will have a look and see if there is a possibility of ensuring that we continue with the bilateral agreement by then moving the black farmer to another piece of land, not to being landless. So this assessment is controversial, which I understand. But again, at the same time, we also have to be very clear that where there are problems, there have to be solutions. And the solution has to be in the best interest of the country. And government have also made it very clear that where it's not possible to remove the farmer, then they are going to make arrangements for the bilateral partnership to be allocated land elsewhere so that they can continue. So this is the issue that has raised a lot of bone of contention. Rightfully so, it has. But I want to make it very clear. that this is part of a constitutional mandate, which is enshrined in the Zimbabwe Constitution, which was ushered in 2013 under Section 72 and Section 295. There is a clear provision in the Constitution of Zimbabwe which addresses compensation for improvements and also for the bilateral agreements. So under these provisions, no black farmer who was allocated land is going to be left landless. But I have to also say it's a compromise that we have to do in order to move on in light of the sanctions that have befallen us, the war that has been put on us since taking over our resources, since taking over our land. So this is the clear government position, and I'm happy to hear what others have to say.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, my brother, for outlining the government position to us. It raises a lot of questions for me, but let me quickly go around the group and get some responses. Audience members, if you want to contribute to the discussion, put your views, comments and opinions in the chat and we'll post them up as well. We welcome your input in this. You know, it's a matter that's very sensitive to all our hearts. I will just quickly say that here in the UK, we have laws against what we call squatting. These are people who invade other people's properties. And when they do that, we call them squatters. And it's illegal for people to squat. And when eventually they are put out, you know, they're not expected to then claim compensation for any developments or works that they may have done while they were squatting. And, you know, if they had the cheek to hang around and insist that they do get compensated, they probably find themselves in prison. And in Jamaica, we have a thing called captured land. You know, people will go and capture land if no one is on the land. But they know that when the owners for the land come, then better pack up and move and go away. All right. So, but there's a lot I've got to say on what you said, and I welcome the fact that you're here, my brother, representing the government. We're not going to go too hard on you at all. We love you dearly, but we're looking at these issues which we feel have to be dealt with, you know, very firmly. So let me go over to Dr. Aboo first for some initial comments on what has been said so far.
Voodoo family.
Voodoo.
Rise up yourself, Father. You know, and once again to the panel, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if the police come in my house and find me with stolen goods, you know, I get arrested. You know, we know how these white people come into Zimbabwe. You understand? We know how they come in there, robbing, raping, kidnapping, and killing.
All right.
And this is 2020. This is 2020. What happened to the Zimbabwean court to try these murderers and these people? Compensation. Listen, I understand what the brother is saying, because a lot of us trying to appease these people because we're afraid of the repercussions from them. But what me tell you, you're African people. You understand? And we have to stand up home and abroad, you know, and stop appeasing these criminals, because these are criminals, you know. You know, and we are telling the young people them not to commit crime. We are telling young people not to commit crime, and we are here harboring criminals. You understand? I'm telling you the truth, blood. I'm telling you. Look at Zimbabwe and better look at the history deeply. Don't look on it from a colonial point of view. Look on it from an African point of view. You understand? Because the next generation will hold you accountable for your action. You know? The attitude and the behavior towards these white farmers. A lot of you wouldn't do it towards the fellow African brother. I truth me I tell you. That is what colonialism done. You understand? Just like what's going on today in South Africa. You know, African running out, African calling them foreigners while they damn kidnap them right beside them. This is what colonialism have done to us. Here I am in the UK, a child of the kidnapped people, hearing my brothers and sisters telling me that they're compensating those that kidnapped me. And here we are talking about reparation, and they're ignoring us. They are ignoring us here in London, while our brothers and sisters in Africa compensating them. The ancestor will punish us for our action, blood. You understand? You know, I'm not holding the government. I'm just telling that the government is suffering from colonial virus. We are talking about COVID-19. Colonial virus is the most deadliest thing. And until we shut that and start to look into what true African self, we will never have justice, blood. Vodum.
Vodum. Rise up, Dr. Aboo. Thank you for your views and opinions on there. Let's go over to Prophet Kwaiku.
Yeah, Otep, I endorse everything that Dr. Aboo has said, and you know, to my elder who's part of the government of Zimbabwe, I have to be truthful to you. I follow the concept of my heart, and I can't tell you no lie. A lot of what you said, all that tells me is that we're still weak. I don't think that the African people really wanted to give them back land, but because of the way that the European postulate themselves militarily on the planet, and the way that they've orchestrated this economical system globally to suppress, to pressure the African governments to capitulate principle. As my brother said, these people, they're invaders. I remember Mugabe said any white landowner has records of purchasing land, he would give it back to them. None of them had any. They did not get this land freely. They should be lucky that they're allowing them to stay there. You understand me? I say? So all this stuff about following international law, whose law? It's white man law. White man is the governor, white man is the general, so he makes the law. The conqueror make the law. You know, it doesn't mean because there is a law, mean the law is correct. Laws are made to suppress people by the powerful. You understand me? So this stuff about you following international law and all them something that, no disrespect to my brother, but as the white man would say, it's a lot of cobs wallop. It's nonsense. That is a position of weakness. You know, and I understand it, don't get me wrong. I understand it, but we have to be honest with the way that we speak. Here we are now, Africans in the diaspora fighting for reparations. There's Africans in the continent fighting for reparations. Reparations for the invasion of Africa. Reparations for the continued destruction and stealing of resources from Africa. Reparations from the kidnapping of the people of Africa. Reparations for all kind of wickedness that they continue to do in Africa. Reparations to how they treated us when they took us out of Africa. The suppression of over 400 years free labor, to initiate the industrial revolution, to initiate the technical revolution where they might have now. Here we are fighting for that. We can't come back to Africa and just say, right, we want to come stay. We have to find visa. When you come to the airports, they might ask you, why you come here? And all them something there. These are things that we've traveled to Africa. I've traveled to Africa many times. And I've had those experiences. Even in the Caribbean, when we travel to the Caribbean, they might ask me, how long may I stay here? They don't ask Europeans that. You understand what I say? So the thing about it is this. When we see and hear this type of news, how you think we feel about it? When we know, say, if we come as Zimbabwe, they know, and all them something, we can't just come and drop down and stay. We have to go through some whole political legislation for the people them that chose not to leave their homeland, but was taken away from it. And the invaders now are being handled with what them call kid gloves. No, brethren, fire for that. Fire for them. Them should have lucky. Like Dr. Khalid Mohammed said, you want to give them 24 hours to leave town. You understand me I say? Because what, if we come there, when I give you land, when we're in Africa, we bring things to Africa to try to develop Africans. And the people in Africa, them try to scam quick and do all kind of something. But with Bakra, them so friendly. And to me, that's a position of fear. You do things. There's a word the European use, and I'm going to use this word. I strongly believe that the people them that sign them contracts in Lancaster Gate and the one them that they redefined the constitution did it under duress. You understand me I say? You know when you do something you got caught and you plead not guilty, and you plead guilty under diminished responsibility. That is what I believe when you do this thing under diminished responsibility. Wasn't into total control of your faculties. And global African family sees it. I'm not gonna stand here, Brother Marshall, I'm not gonna be disrespectful to you, but I'm not going to lie to you. My heart determines that I must tell you the truth. And they must hear from us over here. A joke thing on our deal with. If it mean we have to go to war again, then that's what we have to do. It's just as simple as that. Them can't have no easy ride after them kill millions of African and them have Ian Smith and Cecil Rhodes statue and all. Them tear down them thing and run them, take them body up and fling it in the Atlantic Ocean. Them bones and all them something there. It's a total disrespect to our ancestors. The people them that fought with Joshua Nkrumah, Robert Mugabe, Tonga Gara, and all them people that fought in the bush. Fought and enough of them dead. Them didn't even survive, they died. Some of them got maimed, crippled, fighting for the freedom of the future and the descendants of them people, only to see when Papa Mugabe dead, people them feel so sorry for white people. White people don't feel sorry for we. You know what them are doing in England? You know, so them are killing in the United States and over here and just get away with it like it's normal. Fire for that. That me say, Hotep.
Hotep, rise up, Prophet Kwaiku. Thank you. Brother Leo, what are your views and opinions and thoughts on this matter, and also taking into consideration what our brother shared with us, that the government's position is? Brother Leo.
Greetings again, family.
Greetings.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you now.
Yes, sir.
Greetings, family. Greetings, family. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Yes, we're hearing you, Brother Leo.
Okay, there seems to be some kind of. Okay, great. Because there seem to be some kind of gremlins with this particular platform, because earlier on I was using Zoom and some other platforms and there was no issues, but seems like every time I use this particular platform there are some issues. However, let me begin by saying that I agree with everything that my two brothers have said, and I've heard from our brother from the ZANU-PF government, and I sympathize with him in terms of his stance and what he's trying to get across to us. But I think it's important, beloved family, that we do understand that we are mistaken about the people, Asian people, and those people who have been historically responsible for colonizing Africa and destroying Africans, Black people, as a human reality. We are making a huge mistake in the way in which we look at Caucasians and their historical and behavior as it relates to Africans and Black people. Looking at them as if we're looking at our, when in reality we are dealing with totally and utterly different species of humanity. They do not think, they do not feel, they do not act like we do. Completely different. And from the time we came into contact with them, they war on Africans and on Black people from day one. That warfare has never ceased. It has never stopped. It has only metamorphed into different phases or different elements of the same warfare. And when the people of Zimbabwe finally had enough of being colonized and being dehumanized, they took to the bush and they went to war to free the land. When the European, when the Caucasian realized he was about to lose that conflict, lose that war, he sued for peace because he uses something called tricknology. He didn't sue for peace. He is a peacemaker, or he's a man. He sued for peace because his version of peace is a part of the war. When we went to Lancaster House, unfortunately, it wasn't the leadership in Zimbabwe at the time under Robert Mugabe and also Joshua and those freedom fighters. They recognized at the time that they were dealing with the devil. They recognized that they were fighting against not some fellow, but a demon in Caucasian skin in the land of Zimbabwe. They recognized this. Unfortunately, many of the frontline state leaders recognized this and thought that they could do a deal with the devil. In the Bible, it talks about this. We think we can do a deal with Satan. But the scripture says that your agreement with him will not stand and will be you cannot deal, you cannot make a deal with the people who have been responsible for the death of millions of Africans, the maiming and the displacement and the destruction of African civilization over a period of 300 plus years. You may think you such people, but history will prove that you are mistaken. And so I'm saying, brothers and sisters, the frontline states, they didn't stand in unity with the Zimbabweans who were trying to negotiate in Lancaster House. And as a result of putting pressure on Mugabe and Nkomo at that Lancaster House, they signed up to an agreement which was absolutely in favor of the Europeans and against African interests. This is what we did at Lancaster House. And it was proven by the fact that 20 years went by when nothing happened in terms of land reform, which was what the veterans, the freedom fighters had fought for in the first place. It was always about the land. But over 20 years passed where there was no land redistribution, there was no movement on the land. And for a long time, for over 20 years, maybe nearly 15 years, Robert Mugabe was the darling of Westminster. They loved him because he didn't touch the land. He didn't act upon people. And it was only when the war veterans themselves became so dissatisfied that they said, this is ridiculous. And they began to occupy farms that were stolen from the Africans. But Mugabe found himself between a rock and a hard place. Finally was forced to make a decision whether he was going to stand with the indigenous Africans, the Zimbabweans, the black people, or he was going to allow the media and the white farmers and the British government to force him to attack his own people and push them back off the land. And Robert Mugabe finally decided to stand with the people of Zimbabwe and endorse the fact that they had a right after over 20 years. And this demon called Tony Blair and his minister, Claire Short, saying that no responsibility to hold the agreement at Lancaster Gate, where they agreed that they would pay, they would be the ones to pay compensation to white farmers if that question ever arose. And so, you know, the people began to take the land back. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole litany, the whole history, but suffice to say this, my dear brother, Brother Marshall Gore. You see, brother, it sticks in our throats the idea that these demons are once again being given the benefit of the doubt and are being thing where Africans are always going to bend over backwards to uphold demons, something that the Caucasian has never done. He talks about law, but he is no respecter of law. He is a lawbreaker par excellence. This man is the man who is the rebel on our planet, the man who has broken all laws, especially when it comes to human rights, and in particular the human rights African. And so I'm saying, brother, that this global compensation agreement, it sounds good, it sounds wonderful on paper. These are the Africans now gonna do something to try to alleviate these sanctions on the country. But let me say this to you, brother. They're not gonna lift the sanctions. And if they do lift the sanctions, they're only lifting the sanctions for their benefit. This is like a carrot and a stick thing where they force the Africans, they pressure the Africans, they bully the Africans into returning back to a status quo, Eurocentric and not Afrocentric. And when we go along with these types of things, and we now are proposing to give these people that which they never earned, that which they stole, and stole while destroying Africans in the, believe me, I think brother Aboo who said it. My brother, the heavens and the earth. He is the first ancestor of the original people. And I tell you, brother, he is not pleased. He is highly displeased with Africans today who are still bending over backwards and rolling over and trying to please the former slave masters or colonial masters and their children. It is time. Zimbabweans, South Africans, and all of the other African nations who were formerly colonized by these Europeans, the French, and all the rest of them, to stand up as one. This is why we need a United States of Africa. The African leaders must come together and hold conferences and determine once and for all that Africa will speak with one voice, and that we won't leave Zimbabwe out to dry. We won't leave South Africa out to dry. We won't leave Botswana out to dry. We won't leave any of these small African nations to negotiate with the European Union, or to negotiate with America, or to negotiate with European powers that always come out on top when we do things like this, my dear brother. And so I'm closing on this. I'm saying, my brother, we have been at war with these people for over 400 years, and they have never stopped fighting us. And we are the only ones who stopped fighting, and we think the war is ended, and we think we can now, move into a different phase of relationship with these people. No, brother. They are always at war with the African. And the reason why we can talk like this with strength is because, brother, we have lived among them. Dr. Aboo was born here. I have lived in this country since 1967. We know this Caucasian inside out, and we know him to be a demon. And he will never, ever deal fairly with Africa. And if we approach our dealing with him from a position of weakness, he will absolutely trample and continue to trample on African people's rights. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So true. We were able to hear you through the gremlins there. That was intent on trying to make it difficult for you to have your say. But, as always, Brother Leo, powerful what you had to say. Brother Marshall, we've all heard the position of the government there. There's lots of comments that have been coming in the chat. Hopefully you have been able to see some of the comments and that you'll be in a position to respond to some of them. I wonder if, I don't know if it's yours, Brother Leo, if you could put your audio on mute, please, just the audio. I think we're getting the gremlins coming through from your line, and thank you so much for that. So yes, we'll go to some of the comments in the chat in a little while. And I did note, my brother, while you were speaking on behalf of the government there, that there seemed to be, you know, a real desperate urge for the government to try and comply with every letter of every agreement that had been made in regards to this matter. But, you know, when they refer to the Lancaster House Agreement, they didn't mention that, you know, although Margaret Thatcher's government had agreed that they would pay the compensations to the former white invaders, that the subsequent government of Tony Blair, you know, actually reneged on that agreement and said that it wasn't going to fulfill that agreement at all. So as we can see from their own actions, when it's convenient for them, you know, they will, you know, introduce agreements which they want us to adhere to. And when they feel like it, they will renege on their own agreements. And, you know, if we were, you know, so compelled to follow the letter of the agreements, why was that not happening throughout the government of Brother Robert Mugabe? Why now the sudden interest in wanting to comply with all of those former agreements? You see, my brother, you know, there's the inconsistency there that just doesn't stack up in terms of the presentation and suddenly this constitutional mandate that, you know, the new incoming government feels it needs to comply with. It doesn't wash. I think the vast majority of us can see beyond the veil. They are bending over backwards to try and appease a set of people whose intention, they may want to give the impression, is that they may lift the sanctions should we agree to X, Y, Z, and then ABC. But we know that there is no satisfying this beast. And it was your former ambassador it was the former ambassador, I know I'm going to pronounce his name wrong, Mashaveniyika Maparenga. He did, there's an interview that he did where he's talking about genocide and colonialism. And he was actually making reference to British government documentation and key people in positions of authority who had actually decided some time back that southern region of Africa was going to be a white man's land. It was a land that they had designated for white settlement, yeah? In the same way that they had designated Australia to be white man's land, Canada to be white man's land, America to be white man's land, New Zealand to be white man's land, Tasmania to be white man's land, you see, and they'd earmarked the southern region of Africa, South Africa and Zimbabwe, because of its riches, to be white man's land. And as I said when the outset, they had actually slaughtered millions of Africans. Okay, and we are where we are today with the numbers significantly reduced. And we're in a situation where we're running the danger of allowing the same invaders, the same murderers, robbers, and thieves to have a foothold in that country. And it is dangerous to our future generations if we don't learn from our history that these people will come in, pretend to be friends, pretend to be philanthropic, pretend to want to support, to want to trade, when in fact the reality is they want the land without the people on it. If we lose sight of their overarching agenda and their real intentions, then we are putting our future generations at serious, serious risk. What I'd like to do now, my brother, before I ask you to come back, I just want to go to the comments in the chat and just highlight a few and ask you to respond, please. There was a few interesting comments from a lot of people. There's some in particular from News of the South. And he says in this one that former white farmers should not be compensated for land improvements. It was wrong for the Zimbabweans to agree to amend the constitution. However, it can still be amended to remove that clause. Is that the case, that the constitution still can be amended to remove that clause? And we would like to recommend to the government that they do just that. And I know you said that It's only 40 farms. And it's not a lot. It is a lot. We only need to give these people an inch, and our history shows us that they will take a mile. And before we know it, our water has been poisoned, our food has been poisoned. We are being enslaved by these people. We have experienced 400 years of enslavement under the cosh of these people, so we know what we are talking about, you know. And 3.5 billion is a huge amount of money. It's going to put future generations in debt. My brother, and another one that comes out from that same sender says that Zimbabwe has failed to explain whether black farmers who will be removed and moved elsewhere will also be compensated for land improvements that they have also made. And that matter also needs to be addressed. And elsewhere, others was reminding us that the Zimbabweans who had inhabited the land and were forced off of the land by the Europeans, when they moved them all to the barren, you know, part of the land and hemmed them in, you know, while they took the richest parts of the land, those indigenous people were never compensated. Why are we not demanding that the government compensate the Zimbabweans for the 70 years plus that they had lost the use of their land, etc.? So that's a lot on your shoulders, I know, my brother, but you've got broad shoulders. Let's go over to you for a response.
Thanks, Sister Shanice, and thank you to the viewers that have posed the questions. I think I want to make it very clear that the decision to reverse the constitution is not up to the government of Zimbabwe, but the decision to reverse the constitution lies into the people of Zimbabwe. I think there are legal implications in it, but I'm sure that there is a process that can be adopted by everyone if they can come together to challenge this at this juncture. I'm not a legal expert myself, but I know that constitutions in the history have been rewritten and revised. Certainly, I think that's an area where those that are good with legal minds and with the consensus of the majority of the people, I think if there is a way of revisiting it and adjusting it accordingly, then it should be done. But let's not also make it very clear that in modern day politics, Sister Shanice, when you commit to democracy, democracy is also painful. Like I stand here, I'm a Pan-Africanist and I'm a revolutionary. I'm against that constitution clause, but the fact that the majority of the people voted for it in 2013 then puts us in a difficult position. So we also have to be sincere in accepting that when we live in what we call a democratic world, there are decisions that our other colleagues can make that can also impact in us. And unfortunately, that's one of the demerits of democracy, that decisions that are made by other people in majority can affect all of us. And I think if all of us here in this panel were to participate in that referendum, I don't think none of us would have voted for for that clause to be in the constitution. That shows again that there is a depth of education in people understanding the legal implications of some decisions that are taken hastily that have future consequences to affect how we live as a country. So again, I would like to emphasize that again, it's an area which took place, and unfortunately, it has got us to where we are. And the unfortunate thing is that that responsibility that ushered us to where we are today was a responsibility that was carried by fellow Zimbabweans. So I'll leave the argument of amending the constitution for those with the legal mind to do it, mindful that they will need to garner a majority to do that. And I would say, broadly say, I would support, and I will be on the side that will support that view. And I've said it very clearly from the beginning that this is a compromise that the government has taken in leadership, Sister Shanice and the panel. There are decisions sometimes that you make not personally in the best interest of your personal interest, but sometimes you make decisions in the best interest of the state and the situation which is there. And I want to take back to what Brother Mohammed said, which is very important. I think it's important to put context to the African context in this matter, that the decisions and the historical events we are seeing in Zimbabwe are a result of an African fragile unity, which has disenfranchised us as a country. I want to say this, I'm not complaining, but I don't think boldly as an African collective, we've stood firm in supporting each other in times of needs. I want to make it very clear that our country went through unprecedented sanctions for the last 20 years. It only took SADC last year to call for solidarity of all Africans to denounce sanctions. So the question I have to ask now to my fellow African brothers, the question I have to ask now to my fellow Pan-African brothers, when we went for 20 years with sanctions, we did not get any bailout from the African Union, our big brother. So this is where the problem starts. I think as Africans, we need to build stronger institutions that can support us in times of need. We can only declare and proclaim economic independence when we start to work together. This is why I'm advocating for the African Continental Free Trade Area. We must start to trade together. We must start to support each other, and we must start to stand for each other. The Zimbabwean question is an issue where there has been a lot of solidarity verbally, but practically, we were also left alone to dry and defend the biggest test case for Africa. And I'm glad that my fellow brothers here have supported and concurred that this revolution needed all of us to work together, to put our hands together, to pray together, to work together, and to also stand together, and to also sleep together, and to also pay together. But unfortunately, the price to pay for the consequences were left alone to Zimbabwe. And there lies the problem now that, Sister Shanice, you have visited Zimbabwe and you have observed a lot of the political interest around Zimbabwe now. We have the deeply conflicted Western view, which is pushing the regime agenda and using the difficult situations that the sanctions is presented to our government as an excuse to force regime change agenda. So again, this war is being fought on two fronts. There is another war that the economic hardships, which has been enforced on Zimbabwe as a result of sanctions, and it's clear that the sanctions has come as a result of the land reform program. But therein again comes another deep structural underlying problem that again our country is under siege with forces from the West that are forcing a regime change agenda, and again using the excuse of the challenges and the difficulties in the economy which have been created by sanctions to fight against our government. So this is the situation that government decision making is being made at the back of these decisions. And I want to stand and say, I think collectively our government has been strong in ensuring that, yes, we have to give and take. But in doing that, I think the black farmer has remained protected under the Global Compensation Agreement. I don't think it's going to disadvantage the black farmer. I think the black farmer on the whole will be empowered and will be supported. And I want to make reference to the compensation criteria. Let me make it very clear also that the fact that it's a global compensation agreement, the government of Zimbabwe has made it very clear to the Commercial Farmers Union of the former fight farmers that at present we don't have the local resources to pay the 3.5 billion. That money there is a joint mobilization plan which will include also the former white farmers to approach the likes of Britain, to approach the likes of World Bank, to approach other international monetary funders to ensure that they also foot part of that bill. And to make it clear again, they are not footing part of the bill to compensate them for land. They are footing the bill to compensate them for the developments that they've done. Is it fair when you look at that there was no compensation to our previous ancestors who were disposed to the land? Certainly it's not fair. And you can bring that again to the issue of reparations for slavery. Is it fair? It's not fair. So globally, as a people, as Africans, we have been subjected to a lot of injustice that I stand here to say that we need to work together collaboratively to fight against this injustice. This injustice is not fair, and I agree with my fellow colleagues here that as a people, we must think deeper in finding deep-rooted solutions that get us out of the hole that we are. We are powerless economically, and therefore we are powerless politically. As we speak right now, only one African country sits in the Security Council of the UN. What is this? That is injustice. This is where all our problems are starting, is that as a people, we have remained divided to some extent, and we need to work together as Africa. And I am also appealing to the African Union, to stand firm in defending the African narrative, to stand firm with Zimbabwe and ensure that what we have went through with the unjust sanctions will not happen to any other African country. So we need collaboration from an African point of view.
Absolutely. And let's build on the idea of solutions now. Let's begin to look for some solutions to the problems and the challenges that Zimbabwe is currently facing. You know, our brother Leo Mohammed, you know, as endorsed by our brother Marshall, was saying that we need all the African governments to be standing firmly alongside Zimbabwe and to be supporting Zimbabwe economically, politically, strategically. That's critical and very, very important. Now, we're going to go around again, and this time we're looking for suggestions towards solutions. And, you know, there's a few things that come to my mind. One of the, you know, when Zimbabwe and most of Africa won their independence, what they got was semi-independence. The former colonizers held on to a number of very important strategic pillars that makes a country independent and sovereign. You know, the countries kept their constitutions. The so-called independent countries, they kept the European education system. They kept their economic system. They kept their legal systems. And all of these systems that the colonizers held onto were basically systems of control. And so, you know, my brother's talked a lot about the economic situation in Zimbabwe. One of the main reasons why it's experiencing the economic crisis that it's experiencing is because it's trying to, you know, play somebody else's game. And the person who owns the game doesn't like, you know, Zimbabwe and is putting obstacles in its way. So basically, you know, in terms of the solution, you know, Zimbabwe needs to look, and it's been suggested in the group already, it needs to look to the skills and to utilizing the resources, the skills of its own people, and to be utilizing its own resources, firstly for its own benefit, and then for the benefit of its neighbors. So, you know, rather than, you know, trying to appease, you know, the former colonizers to allow you to play their economic game, why not, you know, as a country, look to be using your own resources to continue to build your country, to begin to stimulate your own economy, create jobs and opportunities for the people within your own country. You know, there are so many examples in history of other countries that have isolated themselves, cut themselves off from the rest of the world and built up their country themselves. You know, there's so many examples, even in America, where slaves who had recently been released from enslavement got together and built cities. You know, there's so many examples from our history prior to the invasions of the Europeans where we built our own cities, our own kingdoms and our own empires. Right where you are in Zimbabwe was the former kingdom of the Monomatapa Empire, and the descriptions of that empire far exceeds any city, any kingdom, you know, or palaces that I'm hearing of in today's society. Most of us just don't realize, I feel, as Africans, the greatness that lies inside, and we need to look to the person in the mirror for the solutions and look within ourselves to do for selves for the solution. For as long as we continue to look to the Europeans as our saviors, you know, and thinking that only they can save us, we will never start to look to ourselves to save ourselves. So I think two important policies that we should be working on is one, the education of our people, to give our people an African-centered education, to remind ourselves of our former greatness, so that our children growing up can have the confidence to know that they're people who look like them were once great and therefore can be great again, and that there won't be this false ceiling or the impression imprinted on their young minds that their savior looks like a European, you know. So we need to take back control of the education, and we need to take back control of our economy and do for self. Those are my suggestions as to the way forward. Let me go around in the opposite direction now and bring in Brother Leo Mohammed. I think there's a time delay on his system, but Brother Leo, we're waiting for you to come in, my brother. Solutions to the problems. Suggestions, ideas for solutions. Okay, you're on mute, my brother. All right.
Yes, I'm clicking the mute button, but nothing is happening.
We're hearing you loud and clear now.
Muted again.
Yes. Okay. Unmute your mute button again, my brother. You're on mute. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
I'm clicking the mute button.
Okay.
Okay.
Now.
I'm off now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you to our brother Marshall Gore for his response. And it's easy for us, I guess, you know, sitting in our armchairs to criticize the leaders and the African government. No real idea about the pressure that obviously comes when you sit in that presidential seat, as the case may be. So I understand that. I understand that we are part of a so-called international community, which brings with it particular types of pressures, especially when we understand that that international community has been formed by Eurocentric ideas, Euro concepts, that they are the ones through the full arm currently dominate our planet. But that's changing, and that's not permanent, that's not forever. But we today as Africans, as Black people in the diaspora, must do our bit to unravel this hegemony or domination of white supremacy, bring it to an end, bring it to a naught, because it does not serve humanity. White supremacy has to be in order for humanity to live. And that's a quote from the teacher, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan also said another thing. He said that politics without economics is symbol without substance. And essentially, at independence, that's what most of the African nations were offered. Politics without economics, which is symbol without substance. And so we were allowed to have a flag, and we were allowed to dabble in politics, which is called democracy, the way a democracy that most of us as Black people in the diaspora have not yet benefited from, because we're still, many of our people are still having to walk around with signs saying Black Lives Matter. Many of us are still in the churches singing We Shall Overcome, which demonstrates the reality that we have not yet been privileged to this democracy that many of us fought, bled and died for in the First World War, the Crimean War, the Second World War, in Vietnam. We've been into all of these places fighting for Europeans to achieve democracy, but we have yet to see it for ourselves, including our brothers and sisters in Zimbabwe and in other parts of the continent. I say again, beloved, because to me, this is really a simple question of survival. And Africans and in continent really want to survive. Because the only way that Africa and the African continent will survive and will thrive, in other words, grow and develop and become the leading economy, the leading power on our planet, which is what Africa is destined to be and what Africa should be, being at the heart of the earth and being the mothers and fathers of civilizations, because we gave birth to all of humanity. The only way Africa would do that is when Africa becomes Africa, and we stop standing by and thinking that it's not going to happen to us. Robert Mugabe, who was a absolute, once he decided to stand with his people, he became a real fighter on behalf of that concept and that idea of an independent Africa. And we stood by and watched them destroy Muammar Gaddafi. And again, this era of democracy, it's the democracies which have destroyed Iraq, destroyed Libya. And by the way, all of these were illegal and unlawful things that they did in the name of democracy. Destroyed Libya, destroyed, currently destroying Syria, destroying the Yemen, which is under attack, using democratic weapons, from the democratic nations. So I'm not too sold on this democracy that we'd be trying to push ourselves into, because if you break it down and you go into the root of democracy, it actually doesn't mean people. It actually means the rule of a particular group of people who are absolutely demons. And so I would say, my sister, that it's a unit. The African continent must unite. The Africans in all of the various countries which are at the Berlin Conference, most of the borders that we currently find on the African continent were drawn by Europeans. They weren't even drawn by us, which is how we conflicts like the one that took place in Nigeria, so-called Biafran War. This is how we get into the Tutsis and the Hutus in Rwanda slaughtering one another, because of these artificial barriers and lines which have been drawn by these Europeans. No, and they knew exactly what they were doing, and they were the ones, they're the hidden hand who foment these conflicts. Right now, I think Brother Prophet Kwaiku mentioned, right now in places like South Africa, you have South Africans who are absolutely against hate. He's a foreigner, but they will walk down the road and see a white man and not even blink an eye when they see a white man, because the white man somehow is legitimized in Africa, but black Zimbabweans are persecuted and attacked in South Africa. This is how sick we've become. This is how deep-seated this division and self-hatred runs in the African family, in the black family. And we have the same thing here as for the difference between all the various islands or whatever. These are the things that have to be mended, my dear sister. If Africa is to be free, if Africa is to become the powerhouse and the superpower that it is, we unite. Black people have to come together. We are European dictates and European standards, because European dictates and standards are absolutely against our own interests. That's all I will say in terms of what's needed. That's the reform that's needed. It is unity across the board.
Rise up, rise up. Thank you very much, Brother Leo Mohammed. One love. Let's go to Dr. Aboo.
Budum family. Budum.
Budum.
When I hear about constitution and how constitution get written to appease white people, you understand? It touched me. Because a 400-year way out of Africa, and up to now, when I written in your constitution in a certain way. And I don't know, joke Because my sons and daughter ears is asking me question that I could not ask my parents. You understand? And today, to hear our people in Africa talk about constitution to appease white people. You understand? And I know unite. And I is not coming back to Africa as no damn prodigal son blood. You understand? Because we never take out anything and squander nothing here. Yeah, this is a reality, you know. We want the leadership in Africa, not the people, because the people always wait and welcome us. But when I tell you, there's a colonial stamp or some colonial line amongst those people there. And I know massaging anyone's ego or anything, you know. When I visit Zimbabwe, it was one of the most beautifulest country I ever visited in my life. And it seemed like the ancestor come out overnight and sweep the street. You understand? You know? Honesty and all of these things. These are the values. And we can't give up the values. So I wonder if our brothers know what. I wonder if our brothers know what democracy really means. See? Democracy means Western cultural aggression. Guys, the same democracy where they knock on them door or ask them for certain things and they will not open it. You understand? So I don't want to come tell me about no democracy. You understand? Because it's the same thing that may take us out under, you know, see, and say that it was legal at the time to enslave I and I. So I'm saying to our African people, every time you see me in Africa, we catch coal here. Whether you want to believe it, yes or no. You understand? You know how many of us go to jail for South Africa, for Zimbabwe, for Angola, and we can name it, go right down the line. Yes, sir. But I think that we as the African people, we have a problem with even our woman, because as soon as our woman put up them faith to even say something, we shut them down, just like yes, sir. We have some great women in Africa, you know. Grace Mugabe was one of them. I don't care where Western want to say about her. She's our sister. You understand? The late great Winnie Mandela was the same thing. And when I see African man stand up, you understand? And persecute those women, and at the same time come in and tell me about compensation for white people. Fire for you. Fire for all of you under that. I don't care what you want to say. The ancestor will hold you responsible, and all of you down there for treachery blood upon the people, home and abroad. Vudum!
Vudum, rise up, Dr. Aboo. Thank you so much for sharing those powerful thoughts with us. A lot to think about there. Absolutely agree. We should not allow Western media to vilify, you know, our great ones, our brave, courageous ones. You know, when we went to Zimbabwe in 2017, it was Grace Mugabe who received us. Grace Mugabe prepared a dinner, yeah, for about 30 of us at very short notice, you know, and we spoke with her, and she had a Pan-Africanist spirit, a staunch Pan-Africanist spirit. And I know that spirit would have made Wazungu shake in their boots, and their same press never stopped vilifying her or call her about Gucci Grace. So what if she wants to have a Gucci? Not that I'd recommend it, but a woman of her stature and her position could have 1,000 Gucci bags if she wants. Why are we allowing them to put labels on our people and vilify our heroes like Robert Mugabe? How dare we allow them to do this? Family, we have to stop listening to their propaganda. We have to stop allowing their propaganda to brainwash us and to tell us how to think of our people. Yeah, we should be able to see for ourselves who is good for our country and who is not. What is good for our land and what is not. If anybody, if you have someone's got their YouTube channel on, please turn it off. Please, if you put on your YouTube channel, please turn it off, family in the group. So as I was saying, you know, we're going to have another topic to talk about the propaganda machinery and the way it's being used to brainwash us, because where we stand at the moment, Although the shackles and chains have been removed from our feet and our hands, our brains and our minds is still being enshackled via their propaganda machinery, their media, their newsletters, their magazines, their television is programming our mind and giving us this inferiority complex and giving us this impression that we need to listen to everything that they say about us and believe everything they say about us. Brother Aboo, Dr. Aboo, I just want to endorse what you were saying about the beauty of Zimbabwe. When I went to that country, family, if you've never visited Zimbabwe, if you was to listen to the newspapers, you would think it was some run-down, you know, God-forsaken den of a country. Well, let me tell you this. They've got beautiful hotels like we've got here in the London, UK. The roads are beautiful like they are here in London. They've got people there who are beautiful from the inside out, and the infrastructure, the wonders of the world, you know, the what's left of the works of our great ancestors is there to be marveled over. You know, there's so much riches and treasures that's there. And these people, they can see the treasures in Zimbabwe from their satellites. And that's why they moved our people off of their land and planted themselves on our land. And when they came, they took all the land where they knew where all the most gold and diamonds and cobalt and treasures were. And they put their houses and built their houses on top of entrances to gold mines. You know, they planted trees where they knew that there were certain riches and resources. They've got the country all mapped out, and they are going to be coming back, even if it takes them 100 years. Their plan is to come back and take that country for themselves. And our plan has to be not to allow them back in by any means necessary. We keep them out like the virus that they are. And if our mind don't sharp, they will be coming with their vaccines to take out the rest of the Zimbabweans who were left behind following their genocide or their attempted genocide during the 19th and early 20th century. Let me go over to Brother Kwaiku. Rise up, my brother Kwaiku. Please come in.
Yes, so Tep, I think the contributions from both yourself, Dr. Aboo, and Brother Leo is been commendable. I endorse everything everybody said, to tell you the truth. And Brother Marshall, I understand that you are in a difficult situation. I just want to read something for the benefit of Brother Marshall, because you sit, you know, you're a very important person within the Zimbabwean government. And the ancients tell us that if you are one of worth and wisdom who sits on a council of governance, apply your heart and your mind toward that which is wise. Speak only when you know you can assist in the solution of a difficulty. For the silence is better than useless chatter. There is an art in giving sound advice in counsel. Surely it is more difficult than all other duties. Those who grasp this can make it serve them well. One of the things that you said, Brother Marshall, was that you have to give and take. I think that over there in Zimbabwe, we've been doing too much giving. Yeah, there's some taking that needs to be done here. But I don't want to beat up on you too much. But you are the representative of the government, and it's you we're speaking to. And I want you to know that the way that we're speaking to you is with love in our hearts for you and our family in Zimbabwe. It's important that we relay that message here on an international platform, so that our people know that we are not denigrating the government of Zimbabwe, but we're holding them to account. And as Dr. Aboo said, the ancestors them is watching, they're not sleeping. And so the ancestors speak through us. The words that we're speaking to you is not us speaking, it's the ancestors them talking to you. So you must listen to them. One of the solutions I think that could happen is that Zimbabwe open its door to the diaspora and Africans. You put something in your constitution that enables diaspora and Africans who want to return home to Africa to be welcomed. And maybe the land that you're going to give back to the white people, then you give back to the diaspora and them. Yeah, because we never asked for leave. You understand me? We didn't ask for leave, Africa.
That's right.
But here you are. Here you are worried about the gringo them. How them feelings, and it's not that you're worried about. I'm afraid of invasion, and I overstand it. And this is why what Brother Leo said is very important. That African, the traditional African countries, them have to unite by any means necessary to protect each other. I think one of the good things was that when the land reclamation started to happen, the British government was actually thinking about invading, but they couldn't get no agreement to the surrounding African governments. Even at the time, they wanted a Mandela to castrate Mugabe, and him said he couldn't because the situation in Zimbabwe is like a baby compared to the situation in South Africa. So I think that one of the things that, I'm not sure, Marshall, I'm asking this in my statement. In the curriculum in Zimbabwe, do you teach the children the history of Zimbabwe prior, or that area prior to the invasions of the Europeans? Do you teach them the history of the struggle with Mugabe, Joshua Nkrumah, Tongagara, and all those people that fought? Do you teach the children them that story in your curriculum alongside the other story?
Yes,
is that
embedded. It is taught,
right? Because that is part of the solution.
Yeah.
Is to train the children then that you cannot allow these people then to get a foothold. You understand me? You know, we have to be very serious and straightforward. And you're pressured because of the so-called sanctions. But I think we need to take the leaf out of China. They want many sanctions. Them lock off themselves the world. And sometimes, you know, my brother, all time people, we ever saying in the Caribbean, yeah? If you want good, your nose have to run.
Mm-hmm.
You understand me I say?
Mm-hmm.
If you want good, your nose have to run.
Mm-hmm.
One of the problems that we have as Africans globally, this is not just in the continent of Africa, is that we want to see change immediately in our time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And don't realize that whatever we are benefiting now is because of suffering and struggles that people prior to us made.
That's right.
That they did not enjoy the fruits of their labor, but they did it for the descendants. So what we have to do now, we have to make that sacrifice now, so that the descendants can look back on us and say, yes, we done them well. We have many of our great leaders in Zinga. We have Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. I quoted Francis Cress Wilson. There's so many of our people, Africans globally, that made sacrifices so that we could have a better life. You can't be in a few age group in the 50s and all them things that you talk about. You live your life already. Unfortunately, we have to live it in the West. But we have to do something for the future. We got to think 100 years ahead. This is how these people them think. They think 100 years ahead. So anything that we do now, we do for our descendants, for the future. That's what we've been sent here to do. We haven't been sent here to have a great time for ourselves. No, because the work continues. So for me, part of the solution is definitely the curriculum. But also within that curriculum, you teach the children them about the rest of the African continent and show them that the struggles that they have in Zimbabwe, that they have in Tanzania, in Nigeria, in South Africa, Botswana, Namibia, Central African Republic, the Congo, and all those things are very similar with the same enemy. And just a bit of a correction. Dr. Chancellor Williams said it poetically in The Destruction of the Black Civilization. We have been fighting a war against these people them for 6 millenniums.
Yes, yes.
6,000 years.
Yeah, yeah.
You understand me? So, it's, you know, the last 400 years is when them finally kind of get control. But up until then, we were fighting them from Kemet, from
Europe, from they come out of the caves,
yeah,
from they
come out of
the Caucasus Mountains.
Yes, the Romans, the Persians, the Greeks, you know, the Turks, the Arabs, the French, the British, the Germans, United States of America. We have been fighting these people them across the planet.
That's right. That's
Some
right.
places they have made us extinct.
That's right.
Like in Tasmania and New Zealand.
That's right.
They've wiped out the black people there.
Totally. And that was the plan for Zimbabwe. That was the plan for Zimbabwe as well. To wipe out all of the people. For well over 50 years, they were wiping out the people across the southern region of Africa. And that is a part of the history that was pre the Chemarenge from 1980.
The Native Americans, the Native Americans said the white man never lived up to any treaty that he signed. Not one.
Not one.
Not one. He's a deceiver and a deception. And he rules from the position of military might. And alongside that, divide and rule. You understand me I say? So here's another solution. And I think it's the greatest solution. It is the only solution. Get rid of him out of Zimbabwe and your problems is solved. As long as him is there, you will have problems in another country. Now, I know it sounds quite radical. Yeah, but radical times require radical measures.
Hotep, rise up, prophet. Well, we are 9 minutes away from the top of the hour. So again, time has absolutely flown by. Lots of suggestions from panel members about the way forward. A lot of contribution in the groups, in the chat as well. The vast majority of people, I think almost everybody in the chat, you know, is fully behind Zimbabwe in terms of the position from a Pan-Africanist perspective. They feel no retreat, no surrender, no giving over the land to the Europeans. We have to stand firm, but we also need to take on board what Brother Leo Mohammed was saying, is that we have to stand firmly alongside Zimbabwe on this as well. We can't allow them to be out there on their own suffering, which means that we have to adopt villages in Zimbabwe. We have to adopt families in Zimbabwe. We have to support families in Zimbabwe, support businesses in Zimbabwe, be the entrepreneurs that are not going to be coming in as in the image of Wazungus. We need to support the farming community. You know, it's a complete myth that black people can't farm. White people can't farm. They don't do the farming in Zimbabwe. They oversee. It's the black Africans, it's the Africans that do the farming. You know, so this myth that they need to transfer skills, no, all we need is the equipment. And if we can't get the equipment from America or from Europe, then we look to China and we look to elsewhere for the equipment. And the equipment could be part of other deals that we can have. I think Zimbabwe,
we can make the equipment ourselves.
We can make it. Bring one in, break it down and make it. Absolutely. We've got engineering universities in Zimbabwe. We undermine our ability and our capability. We really do. And as Africans and even as Caribbeans, we have too much of this mindset that everything foreign is better than what we have a yard. We're not.
Sister Shanice,
let me bring in first, brother. We have to bring back Brother Marshall. Yeah, and then we're gonna see if we got 2 minutes each to run round. Come in, Brother Marshall. A lot has been said. Let's allow you to come back, my brother.
Thank you, Sister Shanice. And once again, thank you to Dr. Aboo and Brother Leo and the Prophet for your recommendations that you have given. I think I fully concur with some of the suggestions that you have made. But just to add, actually, I want to make it very clear that, in my opinion, I actually think that we need to work collectively together as Africans to solve the legacy problems of colonization. I don't think we have done ourselves favors in terms of having a unified position of addressing the issues of dispossession, colonization, and neo-colonialism. I think those issues are still lingering within our verandas. And the sooner we get together from an AU perspective in addressing them structurally, then we can move on to strengthen our financial institutions. I think Brother Leo said it. We need to be powerful economically in order for us to correct the global political narratives to favor our situation. At this present moment in time, I think we are lacking as Africans. So we need to collaborate to ensure that we build our own institutions and make them stronger. The African Development Bank needs to be empowered by us Africans and to make it very strong. And also I'll move to the area of education. We need to develop our educational institutions across Africa, cross-pollinate ideas, generate a stronger generation that is very conscious of its history, understanding of the events that has bedeviled us to take us to this point. What has brought us here is a catastrophe of errors that has happened in the past, which perhaps maybe could have been dealt better. But we must learn from those experiences. Our generation now is empowered that we are engaging at platforms like this, exchanging ideas in our diversity as Africans. So that we must harness, especially here in the diaspora, the collaboration between Africans and Afro-Caribbeans as one embodiment must be strengthened. How do we strengthen it? We strengthen it by having engagements like this, by having conferences, by discussing solutions to our matters collectively. I think platforms like this, Sister Shanice, have to continue even at board level so that we can exchange ideas and take the best ideas that we can use to unlock our problems as Africans. And most importantly, I want to also add that we must work hard in changing our narrative. What do I mean by saying changing our narrative? Letting each of us know that our destiny is in our hands. The decisions we make today have implications tomorrow. So therefore, it is important to be wiser than the wiser, so that the decisions we make today help us to strengthen us, not to weaken us. So on this juncture, I just want to say that this has been a great conversation for me. And also, most importantly, I will continue to engage with the different voices that are here so that we can build a stronger Africa together. And I want to make this clear also, Sister Shanice, in closing, that let me make it clear again that the current reforms that the government has initiated will not lead to Black people losing land. I want to make it very clear that there's no reversal of land reform in Zimbabwe. That is not going to take place. The black people in Zimbabwe benefited from the land, and land is not being taken away back from the people. Land shall ever stay with the people. The vanguard of the revolution is not broken. Yes, it could. Some might want to say it has been disturbed, but I want to make it very clear that the fundamentals of our government is to preserve land to the people. Land to the people and the people to their land. That is not going to be compromised. I know there's a voice that is trying to twist things to give a narrative that the people have been negated. But I want to make it very clear that the land that was disposed or taken from the former white farmers is staying with the Black Zimbabweans. It's not leaving our hands. My father is a beneficiary of the land reform program. We have a family farm as a result of land reform. And I can assure you, as I sit here, that that land is going nowhere. It's staying with us. Thank you.
Rise up, my brother. Okay, we are literally 2 minutes away from the top of the show. Let me give you one of the 2 minutes, Brother Kwaiku, because you wanted to come in a short while ago.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, well, what I wanted to say is too long, so I can't say it no more. I just want to say, great show, and Brother Marshall, the key thing is the Africation of our people, from the children, from the kindergarten to primary to secondary to university. And the question I wanted to ask is that the Zimbabwe has a high rate of university graduates. It's just that they don't have the industry to apply those things that they learn. Am I correct? You got a high university graduate out there.
Yes, we have, but we need entrepreneurship. and we need to build industries. So we need to turn that education into production, in being developmental. This is where now we need partnerships to exchange ideas of incubator hubs, creating more enterprising people that think outside the box, creating not a labor force, but creating scientists, creating agronomists, creating people that can produce, not people that have academic intelligence to work as workers, but people that have academic intelligence to create something, to show value creation with their education. I think that's an area where we lack, but I think we are open for ideas to discuss with our Ministry of Education to ensure that we strengthen that idea of making people more productive with their education.
And this is where collaboration with the diaspora, my brother, I think would be extremely beneficial. Yes. So we are now almost at the top of the hour. My brother Leo Mohammed, if you click the mute button, we'll give you 1 minute, please, and then Dr. Aboo, and we will leave it there. So please unmute yourself. Aha, excellent.
Leave it there. So thank you, sister. I went to the Gambia, the first place I went to in Africa. And then I was blessed to go to Zimbabwe with a delegation. And when I went to Zimbabwe, I felt like I was cheating on the Gambia, because Zimbabwe took my heart completely. Zimbabwe is such a beautiful place. I say to my brother Marshall Gore, please, brother, when you go back, talk within, because what Brother Kwaiku said earlier is very, very important, brother. There needs to be provision made by the African governments to facilitate those of us in the diaspora who want to come back home. But we don't want to come back home and it's costing us, we have to sell a lung or a liver to come back home. And we should be given land. There should be land provision made for those of us who didn't choose to leave Africa, but we were robbed and stolen from it. Please, brother, speak to the government, because this is very, very important, because we have scholarship that we've picked up while we've been living in these places that we can bring back and help Africa, help Zimbabwe to get to the place where it needs. And so this for me is a very, very important necessity. My final words, I was in Zimbabwe and we were interviewing, we went to see a white farmer. And the white farmer pointed to his son. The white farmer told us that his grandfather was born in Zimbabwe, died in Zimbabwe. His father was born in Zimbabwe, died in Zimbabwe. He said that he was going to die in Zimbabwe. He recognized Robert Mugabe as his leader. And he pointed to his little white son playing in the African soil. And he said that he will die in Zimbabwe because this is their land. Sister Esther, who was part of our delegation, she's one of our advocates here in the UK. She began crying because she said, look at me, a black woman, where is my homeland? Where is my home? Here you got white people in Africa, their home, but when Esther is in the UK, she's rejected by in the UK. When she goes to the Caribbean, she's called foreign. When she goes to Africa, there's no place for her. That situation must be rectified, my brother. We must have a place in Africa that we can call home. And so that would be my last word and my message to you, brother. Take that away, because Africa will be stronger when those of us in the diaspora feel that we have a belonging and that we are actually needed and wanted in Africa, and we will return home. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sister Shanice. Well, you've done such a fantastic job, my sister. You really are. You really are a platform for progression and change.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you for being part of the platform and that progression for change as well. More love, more power. Let me go over to our dear Dr. Aboo for a final word.
Yeah, Brother Marshall, well, if I respect all the time, Brother Leo, and Prophet Kwaiku, Shanice,
Thank you. Thank you.
There's more to come, because we're not done. We're not done. And we'll continue to do what we're doing. But I'm saying to our brothers and sisters right across the world, don't leave our woman behind. You understand? Without our woman, you wouldn't have African revolution. You wouldn't have, they play a great role You know, see? And we must stand up with them, and we must not make the West criticize our woman. You understand? We have to stand up with our woman, just as how we stand up our mothers and fathers right here. We got to do that, you understand? Without them, we have no future. I not join the West and them behavior, because European no love woman. And some of us are developed the same nasty behavior too. You understand? You know, we don't love an African woman, but we'd rather one African man dressed up in a frock and them there. We none of them shit there. You understand? We have to stand up. We got to sorry for that. We have to stand up as African man and not sound like a freak. You understand? If Zimbabwe did have them, either go to the alternative lifestyle, all them things they'd have lifted. Stand up for yourself, my people. Stand up for yourself and don't make nobody turn you into some freaks. Voodoo.
Voodoo. Rise up, Dr. Aboo. I'd like to thank each one of the panel members. Dr. Aboo, I'm honored. Our special guest today, Brother Marshall, thank you so much. And our dear Brother Leo Mohammed, Prophet Kwaiku, thank each of you so much for taking the time, you know, to share your thoughts, opinions, and views on this really important topic. To those who are watching us and who have stayed with us throughout the discussion, thank you all so much. All being well, we'll be back same time next strong 8 p.m. Wednesday evening. I'll try and persuade my wonderful panel to come back and join me again for another topic that we will be discussing from an African-centered perspective. So please do continue to support Black media, Black narrative. You know, it's for us to be having our debates and discussions about the issues that impact on us from an African-centered perspective. So all of you have been supporting us with your views and opinions in the group. Thank you so much. Rising you all up. Stay fantastic, Blacktastic. Have a wonderful strong, and we'll see you back next Wednesday. Voodoo. More love. More power.
Catch me tomorrow with Sister Nzinga, 9 p.m. to late on galaxyafui.com, interviewing a great sister, the writer of Black Women in the Gvt movement.
And that's 9
Sister
p.m.
Nzinga
GMT time, 9 p.m. GMT. And I'll put some information in the description for other shows that you can watch where you can interact with us on a similar vibrational level. More voodoo. One love.
One love.
Thank you.